like to introduce you to one of our phenomenal internal action coach women, Lindie Malan, who is a serial entrepreneur. Lindie's been with us now for many years, but has a background of kind of trailblazing, going out there and trying things, and even to running a welding business, taking it over, growing it, scaling, then opening guest houses when really in a time you shouldn't have been opening guest houses if you looked at what the tourism market was doing. She's been a business broker, she's been a coach, and still runs a very successful remote business. So whilst Lindie now lives in the Cape and runs her business coaching business, she also still runs in Kempton Park their guest house, where they have 24 rooms and very much focused on the corporate travel. So Lindie, honored to have you and to share with us those 4 eyes of leadership. So now I've got the excitement that Joe's given me. Please help. How do I do this leadership thing that everybody talks about that seems easy, but I don't know where to start?
Thank you so much, Harry. And what an absolute privilege, and listening to you, Joe, what an amazing real story of being authentic. And I couldn't smile but think of, the idea that we often look at amazing, successful people, Joe, like yourself, and all the others that's going to follow on the panel today, and we almost like think, gosh, their lives are fantastic and perfect, yeah. And here you go, literally uplifting your skirts and showing the world what your house looks like. But I think the true beauty in all of that does not lie in perfection, but it lies in you being absolutely authentically real. So Joe, thank you so much for that inspiring message and kicking us off. So yeah, of course, this morning, you guys will be listening to a whole panel of amazing, thriving leaders, all in their own right. And what I'd like to do is challenge you to think around what are some of the common leadership denominators, the attributes that you pick up from all of them. Joe's already highlighted things like, understanding one's value and your virtue, embracing yourself. So watch out for those common denominators as they share their stories. As a business coach, the question around what drives thriving leadership, what makes the real difference? Why do some succeed and others not? And if you look at some of the amazing examples of leaders and also coaching business owners, I've identified 4 fundamental attributes in thriving leadership that I'd like to share with you today. Of course, there's many, but I had to come up with a couple, so 4 sounded fine. So to just get us started, allow me just to share some thoughts on leadership per se. So John Maxwell says, the first person you lead is yourself. You can't lead others if you can't lead yourself with self-discipline. So in other words, it says, you first got to lead yourself and then you earn the right to lead others. And for me, that's being congruent. That's being real, leading from the front, being the example. Of course, this is a very deep personal process of becoming self-aware. And I think, Joe, you also touched on the importance of, you mentioned it, your thrive, accepting that you're not perfect, yet asking yourself a couple of real personal questions like, do I have the courage to lead? Can I be absolutely 100% authentic and real? What's the worst that can happen? Do I dare? I'm also a big fan of Brené Brown, and in one of her books, Dare to Lead, she says, who we are is who we will lead. And I'll read from the book when she says, self-awareness and self-love matters. So when we have the courage to step into our own story, we get to write the ending. And I'm actually getting goosebumps thinking of just what this means, stepping into my story and writing my own ending. So therefore, thriving leadership, I've got to kick off and say, for me, it's all about courage. It's about vulnerability, being completely authentic, It's okay if people tell me you gritty. It's okay if they tell me, wow, you honest and straightforward. It's okay, because that means they've recognized those abilities in me of being real, 100% authentic. Stephen Covey, in his book, The Eighth Habit, talks about the habit of finding your own voice and helping others find theirs. And if we look at examples of successful leaders throughout the world, the many examples like Gandhi, Kennedy, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Nelson Mandela, some female examples, Michelle Obama, Melinda Gates, Miriam Makeba, Helen Suzman, too many to even mention. All of them were completely honest in their own right, having the courage. Maxwell goes further to say that people will respect you as a person and therefore they'll admire you. Your friends, if they respect you as a friend, they'll love you. But here's the kick. If they respect you as a leader, they will follow you. So now onto the 4 I's that I've identified in coaching my amazing business clients. Some of the things that stood out for me in terms of fundamentals to real leadership. And those are, first of all, to lead with intent, to be inspirational. Then thirdly, of course, become an influential person, an influential leader. And then fourthly, as a leader, we need to make an impact. So let's just look at all of these and while I take you through that. So what is intent? Well, the first thing is, if I see it and I believe it, I will build it. So life, leadership, business, with purpose on business, being intentional in why you are doing what you're doing, because that gives us the power. It gives us the power from within. That means you become deliberate. You become planned, proactive. One of the most amazing books that I'll recommend you to read in seeking your purpose is Napoleon Hill, when he wrote Outwitting the Devil, and he refers to finding a definiteness of purpose. How amazing is that? Because if you've got a definiteness of purpose, like Jo said, you know, I'm reaching out, becoming her own person, and understanding there's a bigger game out there, defining your purpose, because then the center will hold. What does that mean? So in times of adversity, when there's challenges and the storm rages around us, the center holds. And that gives us the courage to hold on, to overcome self, to overcome adversity, challenges, of which there are so many. And also guard, again, all the outside influences wanting to determine who we are and take charge and an agency of our head. We cannot allow that. We need to be on the dot, focused with a definiteness of purpose. The most important thing that intent does, it gives hope. It gives you and whoever follows you, your tribe, your team, it gives you all something to hold on to. Never underestimate the immense power of giving hope, something that someone and everyone that gets in touch with you can hold on to. And then, of course, the power of alignment, the fact that if you can be a visionary and you can communicate this and you can visualize it and you can verbalize it and people can see it and they can say, hey, I believe in that, I want to follow you. That's being intentional. The power of alignment. So questions that you need to ask yourself with intent. Do you have intent? Have you been able to define your purpose and visualize your future? Can you communicate this? Can you say, hey, let's go there? Why not? So how do we do this? A tip that I'd like to share with you is allocate some time and space. Put some time aside and do some thinking. Write down your goals. Jo referred to a vision board, of course, and have your dreams put out there in a place where you can remind yourself daily around your definiteness of purpose. The second I is, of course, inspire. Become a person of inspiration. So what is inspire for me? Well, you know what? That's the fire. That's the passion. That's the fuse. That's the energy. And, you know, everything for me starts with energy, loads and loads and bags full of energy. I'm always looking out for yes persons, yes people that say, hey, you know what, despite everything else, we can do this. So inspiration is for me so important. It gives us that short-term fuse, that burst of energy, building momentum. And let's be honest, when we start creating momentum, the world, the future looks brighter, obstacles appear smaller, and challenges seems like completely inconsequential. John Maxwell refers to want power instead of willpower. This will inspire your team to follow you out of their own free will. So inspirational leadership is for me that. You know, you don't get to lead from authority. You don't get to lead from a title. You don't get to lead from the stage or from a pedestal. You get to lead by inspiring others, and then they choose out of their own free will to follow you. Questions you need to ask yourself are you an inspirational leader? Are things like, how do they feel in my vicinity? How do I make people feel? What are my team and others around me? What are their levels of engagement and excitement? So some tips around creating inspirational leadership is obviously to share some values and beliefs. Unpack these. And I think the phrase that sticks in my mind is, Harry, people like us do things like us. You know, creating your tribe, creating a likeness, because that gives inspiration, a place for people to belong. And then, of course, you know, as often as you can, some open communications, sharing, vulnerability, building trust, earning respect and loyalty. Again, you can see all of this is deeply personal. I cannot be fake in these conversations. The third I is, of course, becoming a person of influence. So where inspiration for me is sometimes very short-lived, it's the fuse, it's the burst, it's the energy. Influence is for me the long-term traction, the effect that I have, the impact that I have in changing others and inspiring them to become the best versions of themselves, creating an environment of change and growth around you. I mean, if you think about Steve Jobs, for instance, that's exactly what he did. He didn't come up with all the amazing ideas around an iPhone and an iPad and all the eyes and the Apple phones. No, it was his team. But he created an environment where it was expected that you would self-discover, self-develop, self-determine, identifying opportunities for growth. This is your task as a leader, to become an influential person and to understand that through others you get to earn the life that you want. Through others and empowering them and developing them, you'll get what you want. I think it was Zig Ziglar that said, if you help enough other people get what they want, you will get what you want. I often, as a business coach, see business owners feeling intimidated by others' skill and excellence and knowledge. But you know, how can you and I think Jo said that when she said, find your tribe, be inspired by others, the people that you surround yourself with. So become an influential leader, and the important thing is understanding that it's okay for them to be stronger than you. So the question you need to ask yourself is, who do they become because of me? What's my influence, my long-term influence on my tribe, on my business, on my team? Some tips around this is invest in your team's development, create opportunities for them to master their own skill, give recognition, guys. I mean, you're not on this alone. You've got a team. Recognize effort, give them a, hey, fantastic, well done, and you'll see them flowering and grabbing on and being creative and innovative and all those things that will give you the differentiating advantage in building your business and going forward. Building a successful team is fundamental to building a successful business, because your team is your key to freedom and having time and getting to that life that you so desire. The final I is, of course, impact. And for me, leadership has got a marked effect and influence. Leadership adds and creates value. And for me, leadership is always impactful, but it's visible and we can measure it. So think of impactful leadership in a business. I mean, you go to the financials. I mean, what's been the growth in our financial results? So if you are a thriving leader, well, it should show in the results of your business. If you are a thriving leader on a human level, you should see that in the development of your team. And then, of course, as a thriving leader in communities, impacting, paying forward, creating bursaries, mentorship. I mean, just being out there and making a difference, building your legacy. So for me, impactful leadership is about the ability to make decisions, to get on with the job, to take action, be operationally excellent in terms of the best version of yourself and your team and your business. So questions to ask yourself, are we actually moving forward? Can I show that in results? Can I see the difference that we make? So some tips around that is, of course, create the dashboards, create the KPIs, look at ways in which we can measure ourselves. Because when we measure ourselves, we identify where we can improve. And that's so important. The ongoing process of learning and developing and getting better. Harry and everyone on this call today, in summary, I believe thriving leadership is a choice and it's a calling. You want to ask yourself, do I dare? If your answer is yes, then step into the light, step into your voice, step into your own authentic, real person, and become a thriving leader with intent that's inspirational, a person of influence, making a real difference in this world. Harry, that's what I wanted to share with everyone today. I have not been following the chat box. For me, I'm as you can see, a singly focused person. So really difficult. So I trust you were watching the chat box. But yeah, open for comment. That would be lovely to answer some questions if there's any. And like Joe said, interaction is where we thrive and live off the energy of others. Absolutely. So any questions, guys, type them into the chat box. And by guys, I mean wonderful ladies, of course. And we will definitely get Lindie to share some of that. I think crap is the word, because Joe said it, choice. Lindie said it, choice. So two speakers in, 2 for 2, there's a thread already. It's the choices we make that become so important. And from a leadership perspective, all 4 I's talk about the choice to behave in a certain way. I think that comment you made around, who we are dictates who we will lead. The converse of that too is if you look around and people you're leading are not that wonderful, in your opinion, well, then maybe look a little bit in the mirror, which is not always such a fun exercise to do. So, Lindie, how do you step into that leadership? I think we all want to play that bigger game. I think it's a human DNA that we want to play that bigger game. You've obviously helped a lot of people do that in their businesses. What's some tips around how do I step into that leadership position? What a difficult question really to answer in a couple of minutes, but such an important one. And I think here's the thing. For me personally, I've for a long time, and I think, Joe, you also said it, we sometimes struggle with self-doubt and self-belief, and all we see is our flaws. And, I'm not as skinny. I'm not as, forthcoming, who would ever believe me? Who would ever follow me? So for me, the very first important key is to hell with what everybody else thinks. The most important voice and opinion is your own. So think about it. For me, that's where it starts, and being a business coach, even in that role, initially in the beginning, sometimes feeling intimidated by some of the powerful, amazing business owners that I get to teach and coach and train. And yet, they're just human. They're just, people like me and you. And who gives me the right to step into leadership and be a leader? Well, you got to put that badge on your own head, first of all. So first of all, for me, it's the self-awareness and accepting self. And then secondly, you know what? If you can just get 1 or 2 or 3 people that you can inspire with your message, your story, you're already a leader. I mean, think about it. It's not about the amount of people that follow us. It's the impact that we make, how we touch people, how we make them see themselves in a different light. So the second thing for me is it's not about the numbers. It's about being authentically real. And, who said that it's not important what you know, but it's important what you show in terms of how you care for people. And I think, again, it comes back to being authentically real and caring and making a difference and inspiring. And I think the world needs so much more of that. Youth today is so outspoken. They've got their voice. It's amazing to see the young generation of female leaders coming through. Yeah, I think, they all realize it's okay. I'm flawed, but that's fantastic. I'm still uniquely me.
Absolutely. And I think the world, not just South Africa definitely, but the world is crying out for leaders. And every single one of us have a journey that can add value to others. So that accepting of self is important. But as Teresa said, it's not always that easy. So I think Marguerite made a comment back on the chat. Ask people that are closest to you for their opinion of your worth, for their opinion of your value, for their opinion of your leadership. And you will be astounded, the people that know you best, what they think of you and how maybe different that is to how you see yourself. So your own voice is not necessarily always the truthful one. And it's something that I even, always struggle with my own teenage daughter. Is that just because you're saying it about yourself to yourself doesn't mean it's true. So lean on those around you. A question here, let me just go back and find it, from Atsepo. He says, great Lindie, so far, how did you build the different businesses? Was it parallel? Did you do the one first and then the other? Just some insight around, because I think it is dangerous that people are wanting to build all these businesses all at the same time. So how did you go about doing it?
Well, Tepo, great question. So now I opened my doors to my guest house already in January 2006. And I remember a day when I had this dream and I always wanted a guest house, and I showed it to some friends of us, this amazing property. And here my friends go, what? A guest house in Kempton Park? You must be mad. And I can't even tell you guys how deflated I was. And I just, looked at them and I think, what, who do you dare? How do you dare just stealing my dream? And of course, we're not friends anymore, but I went on to build the guest house anyway. So here's the first thing. The guest house has been established since January 2006. And yes, to your point, Harry, I'll be very careful to want to be distracted and trying too many things all at once, because we tend to make a bit of a mess of it, right? So I think for me, I've been building my businesses in tandem. So the one, build it, establish it, and then right on to the next. So my business broking company led to my business coaching company. So of course, the one is established, building the other. So that gives me the freedom, and I can sort of oscillate between the two, and their demands are different. An established business has got certain challenges compared to building a relatively new business. So at least, I get to bounce off the two. But yeah, I'd be careful to want to do too much all at once. For me, at least. I mean, I'm not a superwoman, and for me, that would be a disaster. Recipe for a disaster. So I'd rather not know.
Absolutely. Lindie, thank you very much. I think by the comments here, we can see that you demonstrated what Joe even spoke about, is be the model of leadership. Don't be the martyr. And that already stood out in the way you presented the 4 I's. So definitely lots of value.